Every journey begins with a single, silent decision, the decision to be at peace with yourself. It is perhaps the most difficult decision you will ever make, not because you aren't worthy, but because the world has spent years convincing you otherwise. It whispered to you from magazine covers, shouted at you from screens, and echoed through careless words spoken by others. You are not enough, not thin enough, not bold enough, not smart enough, not successful enough. But I ask you today to challenge that narrative. You see, self-acceptance is not resignation. It's not the act of giving up or settling. It is the sacred moment when you finally exhale and say, "This is who I am, and I am worthy of love, joy, and success exactly as I am." Self-acceptance is the quiet revolution that begins when you stop trying to become someone else and start returning to yourself. Confidence doesn't begin when you receive applause or when someone finally recognizes your potential. Confidence blooms the day you look in the mirror and meet your own eyes without judgment. When you smile at the person, you see they're not because they are perfect, but because they are beautifully human. And yes, self-acceptance takes practice. It takes practice to forgive yourself for the times you failed. It takes strength to look at your scars, physical or emotional, and say, "Even this is part of me." It takes courage to stop comparing yourself to others who appear to be ahead in life, and to instead honor the path you are on, with all its detours and delays. Every time you criticize yourself for not being good enough, smart enough, or beautiful enough, you chip away at your own spirit. But when you begin to accept yourself truly, unconditionally, something magical happens. The noise quiets, the tension eases, and your personality begins to shine, no longer dimmed by shame or doubt. Self-acceptance is also the birthplace of grace. It teaches you that it's okay to not have all the answers, that growth isn't linear and neither is healing, that there will be days when you feel strong and days when you don't, and both are part of being alive. It reminds you that you don't need to apologize for taking up space, for having needs, or for dreaming too big. This kind of acceptance transforms how you move through the world. You stop shrinking to fit in and start standing tall, not because you're arrogant, but because you know your worth. You begin to choose authenticity over approval. You start setting boundaries not as walls, but as acts of self-respect. And slowly, you attract people and opportunities that align with your truth. When you accept yourself, you also become more accepting of others. You no longer see people as competition, but as companions. You stop judging others because you no longer judge yourself. Your confidence becomes quiet, grounded, and unshakable, not built on achievements or appearance, but on inner peace. So if today you find yourself caught in self-doubt, pause for a moment, close your eyes, place your hand over your heart, and whisper, "I am enough." Say it until the words don't feel foreign. Say it until they feel like home. Because you are enough not when you become more, not when you fix everything, not when the world finally says so, but right now, as you are, with all your brilliance and all your broken pieces. You are not a project to be perfected. You are a soul to be embraced. Let that be the foundation on which you build your confidence. Let that be the truth that carries you forward when nothing else does. And remember, the most beautiful transformation doesn't happen when you change who you are. It happens when you return to yourself and realize you were never lacking to begin with. Words are powerful. We often speak of their impact on others, how words can heal, inspire, or break someone, but we rarely pause to reflect on the impact our words have on ourselves. You see, we are constantly in conversation with our own minds. Even in silence, there's a voice narrating, interpreting, and labeling our every experience. And often, that voice isn't kind. Often, that voice has inherited the criticisms of others and turned them into beliefs about who we are. You're not good enough. You'll never succeed. You always mess things up. How many of us have lived entire lives under the shadow of these words, not spoken by strangers, but whispered by our own minds? It's easy to spot the damage when someone insults us. It stings, it stays, but the wounds caused by self-criticism are harder to recognize because they wear the disguise of truth. We think we're being realistic, humble, or self-aware, when in reality, we're slowly eroding our confidence with a daily stream of harsh words. But let me ask you something. Would you ever speak to a friend the way you speak to yourself? Would you call someone you love useless because they failed? Would you shame them for not being perfect? No, you'd hold them, you'd remind them of their worth. You'd say, it's okay, you did your best, you'll get through this. Then why not offer that same compassion to yourself? Speaking kindly to yourself isn't vanity, it's not indulgence, it's necessity, it's survival, because life is hard enough without being your own enemy. You deserve to be on your own side. You deserve to wake up each morning and say, I'm proud of you for trying, instead of immediately listing everything you haven't done yet. Kindness towards yourself softens the inner tension. It allows you to grow without fear. It makes you feel safe in your own presence. And when you feel safe, you're not afraid to take risks, to step forward, to speak up. That is where true confidence is born, in the space where kindness replaces judgment. But the beauty of this shift is that it doesn't stop with you. When you begin to speak gently to yourself, it becomes easier to speak gently to others. You see their struggle and recognize it as your own. You start to listen without the urge to correct or criticize. You understand that everyone, like you, is carrying invisible weight. And instead of adding to that burden, you choose to lighten it with a kind word, a smile, a moment of patience. This kind of kindness is rare. It doesn't need a stage or spotlight. It lives in the quiet moments when you choose to encourage instead of compete, when you hold space for someone else's pain without trying to fix it, when you offer empathy instead of advice. Your personality begins to shift in these moments. You become someone others feel safe with, someone they trust, not because you're perfect or always cheerful, but because your presence feels like home, warm, accepting, real. That is what makes a person unforgettable. Not their looks, not their achievements, but the way they made others feel seen and valued. And what's more beautiful than becoming the kind of person who makes people believe in goodness again? Let me tell you something. Kindness doesn't mean weakness. It doesn't mean letting others walk over you or tolerating disrespect. Real kindness is strong. It knows how to set boundaries without aggression. It knows how to say no without guilt. It knows how to protect its peace while still wishing others well. Kindness is not about being agreeable all the time. It's about being authentic, respectful, and heart-centered even when it's difficult. And it starts with how you treat yourself. So the next time you fail, don't punish yourself. Learn from it, but also remind yourself. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of it. The next time you look in the mirror and feel tempted to criticize what you see, pause. Look deeper. That face carries the stories of survival, of resilience, of dreams unspoken. Speak to it with love. Say, thank you for showing up today. Say, you're doing better than you think. Say, I'm proud of you. And watch how that kindness transforms not just your confidence, but your energy. Watch how it changes your relationships, your work, your presence in the world. Because when you begin to speak kindly to yourself, you plant seeds of peace that grow into strength. And when you speak kindly to others, you remind them of their light even on the days when they've forgotten it. The world is already full of noise, criticism, and pressure. Be someone who softens that world, even if just for one person. Start with yourself. You are not too broken. You are not too late. You are worthy exactly as you are. Speak it, believe it, become it. We are taught to be fearless as if fear is a weakness, a flaw, a defect in our character. We are told to be bold, to stand tall, to chase dreams without hesitation. But no one really talks about the trembling hands, the racing heartbeat, or the quiet doubts that accompany every step into the unknown. Let me tell you something that may surprise you. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is standing in the middle of fear and choosing to move anyway. It's hearing all the reasons your mind gives you to hold back and still whispering to yourself, just one more step. You don't have to climb a mountain in a day to prove your strength. Sometimes your greatest act of bravery is getting out of bed when your spirit is heavy. Sometimes it's speaking your truth in a room full of silence. Sometimes it's trying again after failure, after rejection, after heartbreak. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply begin. Big transformations rarely come from one grand moment. They are the result of hundreds of tiny, invisible victories. The quiet decision to say yes to something that scares you, the choice to show up even when you feel unready, the willingness to take a small risk when staying in your comfort zone would be so much easier. We think courage has to be loud, dramatic, visible, but I believe the most powerful kind of courage is silent and steady. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't wait for permission. It comes from a place deep within, from a desire to grow, to learn, to live more fully than yesterday. Every time you take a small, brave step, you send a message to your soul. I trust you. And that trust builds something extraordinary. That trust becomes your confidence. Not the arrogant kind, but the kind that sits quietly in your chest and says, I can handle this, even if I'm scared, even if I fall. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is a sign that you're standing at the edge of something that matters. It only shows up when you're about to grow. It appears when you're close to something meaningful, a dream, a relationship, a purpose. The goal is not to eliminate fear, but to dance with it, to invite it to walk beside you and keep walking anyway. Some days, the step will be so small, it feels insignificant, making a phone call you've been avoiding, applying for a job you think you're not qualified for, asking a question in a room full of strangers. But no step is ever small when it leads you closer to who you're meant to be. Growth doesn't demand perfection. It asks for effort. You will stumble, you will doubt, but you will also rise. You will also surprise yourself. You will also begin to see that your limits were never real. They were just fears you hadn't challenged yet. Confidence is not something you're born with. It's something you build slowly and deliberately by showing up for yourself every day, by doing things that stretch you even if you're not perfect at them, by giving yourself permission to be a beginner, to be awkward, to not get it right the first time, because you don't need to be fearless to be confident. You just need to be willing to try, willing to learn, willing to fail and still keep going. So if you're waiting for fear to disappear before you begin, you may be waiting forever. Instead, begin while you're still afraid. Speak while your voice shakes. Walk forward even when your knees tremble. Take the step not because you're certain of the outcome, but because you believe you deserve more than a life lived in fear. And one day you will look back and realize that all the small, scared steps you once took were not small at all. They were the very foundation of your strength, the building blocks of your confidence, the beginning of your becoming. You are braver than you know, and every small, brave step you take is proof of that. There is something beautiful about things that are not perfect, a cracked pot that still holds flowers, a worn book with frayed pages that hold stories that shaped hearts, a scar across the skin that tells of battles fought and survived. And yet, when it comes to ourselves, we want to be flawless. We hide our cracks. We cover our scars. We apologize for our flaws, as though being human is something to be ashamed of. But perfection is a myth, a distant, unattainable illusion that steals our joy and strangles our self-worth. The truth is, we were never meant to be perfect. We were meant to be real, to be raw, to be growing. And real people are messy. Real people make mistakes. Real people fall down, and they rise again wiser, stronger, and more compassionate because of it. We live in a world that edits reality, filters out the flaws, crops out the chaos, and so we start to believe that our imperfections are burdens, rather than the very things that make us unique. We compare our behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. We measure ourselves against unrealistic standards, and in doing so, we forget how to be gentle with ourselves. But imperfection is not the opposite of beauty, it is part of it. The Japanese have a concept called kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. Instead of hiding the cracks, they highlight them, celebrate them. The object becomes more precious for having been broken. Imagine if we could do the same with ourselves, wear our scars not as shame, but as strength. You are not less because you've made mistakes. You are not unworthy because you failed. Every time life tried to break you and you kept going, you became more, not less. Every time you stood up after falling, you added a new layer to your strength. Your imperfections are not flaws to be fixed. They are evidence that you are living, learning, and becoming. Confidence is not about pretending you have it all together. It's about owning who you are completely. The good, the bad, the in-between. It's saying, I am still figuring it out, and that's okay. It's daring to show up as yourself in a world that tells you to be someone else. When you embrace your imperfections, you give others permission to do the same. You create space for authenticity, for vulnerability, for connection. People don't connect with perfection, they connect with honesty, with courage, with those brave enough to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm here and I'm trying. And there is so much beauty in trying, in being a work in progress, in choosing to rise each day and give life your best, even when your best looks different from yesterday, even when you feel like you're falling short. Stop waiting to be perfect to love yourself. Stop waiting for the perfect body, the perfect job, the perfect relationship. Love yourself now in the middle of the process, while the paint is still wet, while the pieces are still coming together. Because this version of you, right here and right now, is worthy of love and respect. Not someday, not when, but now. You don't have to shine all the time to be valuable. You don't have to smile through pain to be strong. You can be both healing and growing. You can be both uncertain and brave. You can be both flawed and deeply, deeply worthy. And maybe, just maybe, the goal isn't to be perfect. Maybe the goal is to be whole. To stand in your truth with your flaws, your fears, your failures, and still say, this is me, and I am enough. So wear your imperfections like medals. Speak your truth with grace. Let your story in all its rawness and resilience be a light for someone else who thinks they have to be perfect to be loved. You are not broken. You are becoming, and there is power in that. There is something sacred about the ordinary, something quietly beautiful that we often miss in our rush to chase the extraordinary. We are so busy waiting for grand moments, the dream job, the big win, the perfect relationship, that we forget to honor the small miracles unfolding in front of us every single day. But when you begin to live with gratitude, something shifts. The ordinary starts to feel extraordinary. The things you once took for granted become the very things you start to treasure. Gratitude doesn't require perfection. It doesn't need your life to be flawless or your heart to be free of pain. Gratitude simply asks you to see what is already here. It invites you to notice, to slow down and really notice the way the sun feels on your face, the sound of laughter in the next room, the strength in your legs that carried you out of bed this morning. So often we focus on what is missing. We count the things we lack. We measure our lives in terms of what we haven't yet achieved. And in doing so, we overlook all that we have. We forget that there was a time we prayed for the very things we now consider ordinary. We forget that someone out there is wishing for the life we are living with all its mess, its imperfections, its unfinished pieces. Gratitude is not just a feeling, it's a choice, a daily practice. A quiet rebellion against the noise that says you're not enough, and you don't have enough. It's a way of saying, even in the middle of uncertainty, I still have something to hold on to. When you begin to live with gratitude, your entire perspective changes. Problems don't disappear, but they shrink in size. Challenges no longer define you, they refine you. And the heaviness in your heart starts to lift, little by little, because gratitude is the light that reaches even the darkest corners of your soul. It teaches you to shift your focus from scarcity to abundance, from fear to trust, from resentment to acceptance. It teaches you to see the blessings hidden in the struggle, the lessons in the loss, the wisdom in the waiting. Gratitude doesn't ask you to deny your pain, it asks you to honor the light that still remains, and it is always there. Even on the hardest days, there will be days when your heart feels heavy, when the world feels unfair, when hope feels like a distant memory. And on those days, gratitude becomes a lifeline. You don't need to be cheerful. You don't need to fake a smile. All you need to do is pause, breathe, and find one thing, just one thing to be thankful for. Maybe it's the cup of tea in your hands. Maybe it's the friend who checked in on you. Maybe it's the strength you didn't know you had. the tears that finally brought release, the silence that gave you clarity. Gratitude, in its simplest form, is presence. It is the practice of being here, not stuck in the past, not lost in the future, but anchored in this moment. And this moment, no matter how difficult, is still a gift. When you cultivate gratitude, your personality begins to radiate differently. People feel it in your words, in your energy, in the way you listen. You become grounded, humble, open. You no longer need to prove your worth or chase after validation, because you already recognize the richness in your life. Gratitude brings with it a quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to shout, because it is deeply rooted. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about gratitude is that it grows when you give it away. The more you express it, the more you feel it. When you thank someone, when you acknowledge their kindness, when you see the good in them, you're not only lifting their spirit, you're nourishing your own. Gratitude builds connection. It softens hearts. It reminds us that even in a world that can be harsh and cold, there is still so much good to be found. So take a moment every day, write down what you're grateful for. Say it out loud, share it with someone, even on days when it feels like there's nothing. Look deeper. There is always something, your breath, your resilience, your becoming. You are here, you are alive. You are evolving, and that alone is enough to be grateful for. The people we choose to surround ourselves with have more power over our lives than we often realize. They shape our moods, influence our thoughts, and affect the energy we carry into every moment. Sometimes these influences are gentle whispers of encouragement, and other times they can be loud voices that pull us down. Choosing who we allow into our inner circle is one of the most important acts of self-love and self-respect. We all know what it feels like to be around someone who lifts us up, who sees our potential even when we can't, who celebrates our small victories, and who holds space for our pain without judgment. These people are rare treasures. They remind us of our worth, and their presence helps our confidence grow quietly and steadily. On the other hand, being around negativity can be draining. When someone constantly criticizes, doubts, or dismisses us, it chips away at our spirit. It creates a fog of self, doubt, and fear. Even when we try to stay strong, the weight of constant negativity wears us down. It is not weakness to step away from such influences. It is wisdom and courage. Choosing positive influences does not mean surrounding yourself only with people who agree with everything you say or do. It means seeking those who challenge you to grow, who inspire you to be better, but do so with kindness and respect. It means finding those rare souls who don't compete with your light but celebrate it. Sometimes the positive influences come from unexpected places: a mentor, a colleague, a neighbor, or even a stranger whose words resonate with your heart. It could be a book that changes your perspective or a song that lifts your spirit. It might even be a memory that reminds you of your strength. All these sources contribute to the energy you carry. Surrounding yourself with positive influences also means learning to protect your mind and heart. It means setting boundaries with people who drain your energy or bring toxicity into your life. Saying no to negativity is not selfish. It's essential. Your peace is a precious gift that must be guarded carefully. When you consciously choose positivity, you begin to notice a change within yourself. Your confidence grows not because the outside world has changed, but because your inner world has shifted. You start to believe in your worth, and that belief acts like a magnet, attracting more light into your life. Your personality shines brighter when you're nourished by positive energy. You become more compassionate, more patient, and more resilient. You find joy in everyday moments and strength in challenges. You begin to understand that your environment can either imprison you or set you free, and you hold the key. It's important to remember that this is a journey. Sometimes we cling to toxic relationships out of fear, habit, or loneliness. Sometimes the voices of doubt are so loud that even the kindest words can feel distant. But every step you take toward positive influences is a step toward healing and freedom. You deserve to be surrounded by people who remind you of your beauty and your brilliance. You deserve friendships that nurture your soul and relationships that uplift your spirit. You deserve environments where you feel safe to grow, to stumble, and to soar. So, take a moment to reflect on who is in your circle. Ask yourself, Are these people helping me become the best version of myself? Are they adding to my peace or taking away from it? If the answer is no, it's okay to let go. It's okay to create space for new connections that support your growth and happiness. Remember, the energy you surround yourself with is the energy you carry within you. Choose it wisely, protect it fiercely, nurture it daily, because when you surround yourself with positivity, you are not just improving your confidence or personality, you are creating a life where you can truly thrive, a life that honors the beautiful soul that you are. And that is a gift worth giving yourself every single day. Remember, improving your personality and building confidence is not about becoming someone else, it's about uncovering the incredible person you already are. It's a journey of kindness, courage, gratitude, and self-love. Every small step you take, every gentle word you speak to yourself, every moment you choose growth over fear, brings you closer to living your fullest, most authentic life. Surround yourself with light, embrace your imperfections, and celebrate your progress, no matter how small. Trust that within you lies an endless well of strength and beauty, waiting to shine through. The path won't always be easy, but it will always be worth it. So stand tall, speak kindly, move bravely, and live gratefully because you deserve to walk through this world with confidence and a heart full of peace. You are enough just as you are, and your journey toward becoming the best version of yourself is already a victory.